Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me on another of my amazing interviews. Now, you may not have heard the news, but apparently the interest rates have just gone up yet again. And straight off the teleprinter, I have here that they have gone up, the highest they've been for 15 years, up to 5.25%, which may give you alarm bells when it comes to paying your mortgage off. Fortunately, I have actually paid my mortgage off. And I remember paying my mortgage when it was higher than that. But that was some time ago. I think we've been lulled into a false sense of security for a long time when it was almost next to nothing. However, if it keeps going up at this rate, we'll all have to go into those our mattresses under the bed where we keep our £1 million or even £100 million notes in order to pay off the bills. Think I'm talking rubbish? Well, let's talk to Justin Walker, who's joined me. He knows a thing or two when it comes to money. Hello, Justin.
Well, I thought you were going to say he knows a thing or two when he's talking rubbish. Well, I, 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 I am certainly not an economist. So here's the government health warning, the health warning you need to prevent you being sued or anything. I am not an economist, and thank God for it.
But you are a man of reason and you work things out.
Yeah,
Common sense is your.
critical thinking and asking those questions that otherwise people would not like to ask, or at least the establishment wouldn't like you to ask of them.
So let me ask you a question then with your critical thinking hat on, Justin. Up it goes, the interest rate to 5.25%. Why and who is doing it? And how do they justify it?
Yeah, well, first of all, we've got to work on the essential fact that all banks create money completely out of thin air. It's not backed up by anything. That's the first rule. And the what was it? The chap who was the one of the co-founders of the Club of Rome, the co-founder of the Bank of England. He said, "quote We can create money out of nothing based on the interest of what we provide." I mean, it's just a scam, and it's been a scam since 1694. Now, the Bank of England are the people who set the interest rates.
Right.
Now, the Bank of England at the moment, it is supposed to have been nationalised in 1946. But let's be honest, the Chancellor of the Exchequer supposedly nominates the governor of the Bank of England, and he gives him the job. But there's very little that the Treasury has control over the Bank of England. The Bank of
So, so
England,
Yeah, so we should just point out the Bank of England. I mean, most people would assume that the Bank of England and the Treasury are one and the same because they're part of the government. But
it's just like the Federal Reserve and the US Treasury in America. They would love ordinary people who don't want to get involved in economics and financial things just to think that the Federal Reserve is part of the US Treasury and vice versa, and the Bank of England is part of the HM Treasury and vice versa. So they just think money is being looked after by these august bodies who we
mm,
can trust. That's the appearance they want. And to a very large extent, that is what people think. They don't particularly like bankers, especially the high street bankers, but they don't think beyond the high street bankers as to how money is created, how it's controlled, and how the supply is kept in order. So, so the Bank of England, there we are, supposedly, nationalized, ha ha, but it is actually controlled by an organization that I've mentioned before on your program called the Bank for International Settlements. And the Bank for International Settlements is a body that was created in 1930 by the governor of the Bank of England at that time, a chap called Montague Norman,
see if we can
and
find
another
a
chap
picture of
called
it.
Chalmers Schlucht.
Here we
Now, there
go.
we are, scrolling down. There we go, coming down. There we are, the Bank for International Settlements in Basel in Switzerland, commonly known as the BIS. And the BIS has given itself complete autonomy over the world's money creation and money supply. It actually has 53 central banks directly under it, but all central banks look to the Bank for International Settlements for supposed guidance, in inverted commas, but in fact they take their instructions. Because ultimately, the Bank for International Settlement is controlled by the big banking dynasties like the House of Rothschild, like the Warburgs, and there's about 11 financial families that effectively control the world's money. They decide how much, or more accurately, how little money we're allowed to spend. Now,
And
we'll go back, if we can,
mm,
to that House of Lords one, because obviously I've come onto your program before. You very kindly allowed me on, and I last time I came on with Daniel Thompson Mills, who's done a book based with myself, and you were kind enough to promote it.
of
Now,
course.
as I said, I am not an economist, but when I knew interest rates were going up today, I thought, oh, let me have a look. Let's just see if there's anything untowards that I don't know about, or I'm. They always say you learn something every day. Well,
Mm,
I did because I went onto the House of Lords library website just on what is the Bank of England. I was curious to see if they would mention the Monetary Policy Committee who decide on the interest rates and how it's drawn up. And something caught my eye, and I think you've got it there. Where is it?
yes, I'm just searching it here. Here we go. It says
Right. Well,
just here.
yeah.
It says today only the bank can issue notes in England and Wales. 7 banks in Scotland and Northern Ireland can do so, but only under certain conditions. Special banknotes worth £1 million, or if we scroll down to the next bit, 100 million each, are held by the bank to back these Scottish and Irish note issues. What does that mean?
Well, this is fascinating. I'm going to be honest. The 100 million one apparently has got a nickname called the Titan. And in case people think this is a scam, it's on Wikipedia. You can go onto Wikipedia and it's there.
Yes, I think we've
You
got
know,
that page. We
yeah,
have got that page. Here he is.
yeah.
Be helpful that if we do that. And there it is. The Bank of England
Well,
£100,000 notes referred to
100
as
million,
Titan.
100 million pound notes.
And
You
it is a non-circulating Bank of England sterling banknote, which is very handy because I'm sure if you went into the off license to get your milk and a packet of fags, you might be a little bit surprised to think that you won't actually get any change.
Well, I chuckled because I used to, in my little part-time job I had when I was semi-retired, I worked for an animal charity in one of their shops, and there was a very strict rule: never ever accept £50 notes. So I think if I had accepted 100 million, I'm not sure. Well, anyway,
And there
yeah,
was a film, wasn't there? There was a film, the £1 million note with
yeah,
Gregory Peck,
yeah,
I seem to
yeah.
remember,
There
and he
was.
couldn't change it. I mean, it
I
was a
know, I
useless,
know.
useless bit of paper, really.
I know. So I mean, it sounds incredible. It sounds far-fetched, but it is apparently true. But the question you have to ask yourself,
Hmm.
as we're not on the gold standard, or any standard come to that, what is this note backed by?
Yes. Well,
Now,
that's it. It's
that is the crux of the matter. And the second one would be if Scotland were to vote for their independence, with the present shenanigans going on, that seems unlikely. But if the Scottish nationalists were to redeem themselves, or Salmon's Alba party was suddenly to do well, and they managed to persuade the Scottish people to basically cut their strings and go and become independent, would they cut their strings with the Bank of England? And in which case, how would they pay for things? I know how I would if I was in Scotland, how I would do it. And I've been on your program before, and I will mention this. But, this note, notes, 100 million and £1 million notes, what are they backed by? And
yes,
why don't we
and
all know about this? As I said, the £100 million note is known as a Titan, a Titanic. Well, we won't know what happened to anything named Titanic, but anyway, Titan. Um,
yes. Well, that went down.
well, exactly.
If you believe
Yeah.
the history, of
If
course,
you
that
believe the
went.
official history, I personally think it was the Olympic, but we won't go into that.
No.
No, this is
But
fascinating.
if you've got a note that's not backed by anything, it's
Hmm,
just a piece of paper, and the same problem that Gregory
hmm.
Peck had. It's what do you do with it? And if somebody calls it into question, I promise to pay the bearer £100 million. It is a bit of a nonsense, isn't it?
Well, you have a problem if you take a fiver to the. I mean, there are a few wonderful people going back a few years ago, when they were trying to expose the city of London, and they were quietly going along to the Bank of England with their £5 notes and saying, "I want £5 worth of gold, please," and they were
Yes.
being shown the door.
And I've fortunately got double that. Oh, I've just ripped it in half.
My God, a man who can
So
destroy his notes, he's a wealthy
look at
fellow.
that. It's actually about a third. So that's about £3 30.
Oh,
So I'll have to
dear.
get some sellotape. Do you know that's never happened before? That just ripped so easily. That is
Hang
that is
on, isn't it one of those polypropylene jobs?
it is one of these terrible.
All right, then you've got
Yeah. So I've got £7.50 here.
Well, if you don't mind me saying so, that's very illustrative of our economy. You think
Ex-
it's totally secure and nothing's going to happen, and what?
yes,
It goes.
and there it is. Limerick, that's no good. But that is hilarious. So there we are. It is just a bit of paper, but it does say on here. Luckily, before the tear, it says I have to get your glasses because it's really tiny now. I promise to pay the
Oh,
bearer
yeah.
on demand the sum of £10, but it's so tiny that I mean it probably legally has to be there, but it's just
Mm,
the thought, it's a belief, isn't it, that this piece of paper, which you can actually see through, look
yeah.
at that, it's an improvement,
Well,
is worth something.
and who is I? You read
And
out,
yes,
who is I on that state? Who is I? Is it the governor? Is it the poor old cashier who has to sign her name on it?
yes, it's not named, is it? It's just I,
There
as
is a
in
there is a cashier who has to put a name to it, or her in this the current state, him,
yes.
her.
Is
So
there a
it
there is
is just a piece. I was going to say a piece of paper. It's a piece of plastic. That's what
yes,
it is,
it's a
and
piece
it's
of
backed
plastic,
up by absolutely nothing. But you see, that is the now. This is the interesting part.
right?
That is the Bank of England. And the Bank of England are the same people who have decided today to raise interest rates. And the people doing the raising of the interest rates, and I've got them written down here, I think you've got a copy too, the Monetary Policy Committee, there's Andrew Bailey on it,
Oh,
and you've
let's
got
go and
a
have
chap
a
called
look.
Ben Broadbent, Sir John Cunliffe, and Sir Dave Ramsden, who are all three the deputy governors. And then you've got some outsiders, Dr. Swati Dingara, Megan Green, Jonathan Haskell, Catherine Mann, Hugh Pill. Well, who are these people? They're not elected. They're not accountable to the electorate, to us, the people. They meet in secret. We're not going to see the minutes of the meeting. We're not going to be allowed to do that. And they're private individuals. So who the hell are these people who are coming along and saying we're going to raise interest rates? Surely
Yes,
this should be in full transparency of our government and our politicians. Not that and we can discuss them in a moment, but in a real society, in a true society, an enlightened society, we wouldn't have the debt-based system that we have now. But when it comes to money creation and money supply, it should be in the hands of people who are fully transparent, fully accountable, and who the people have complete confidence in because they are practicing wisdom and not some sort of ism or ology, a socialist or conservative, liberal, whatever it is. But they genuinely see how much money the country and the economy needs to flourish successfully. Now, as I said, I'm no economist, but the one thing that always annoys me is you hear all these different schools of economics. You've got the Keynesian school, the Austrian school, the New Economic School, and all these others. And of course, you've got the London School of Economics set up by the Fabians. And all these people, they all have their different approaches to how money should be created and money supplied. But the one thing they never, ever, ever say is that the entire system is basically run by unelected, unaccountable people, private people meeting in complete secrecy. How can that be okay in a democratic system? Of course it isn't. And yet the
no,
entire financial system is run this way. So, as far as I'm concerned, if they cannot even accept that basic point, then anything they're rabbiting on about, and all these wonderful graphs you see, and all these formulae they scribble up on the board, to hell with them, because none of it makes any sense if it's all in private hands and
yes.
backed up by nothing.
We've seen the advantages of a piece of plastic. In my hand here, I have actually. I wonder if I can do this on the. Where is the little? Oh, I can't do it. Hang on, I have to go here. Here we go. I have a handful of
Yeah,
change.
coins.
Good
Yeah,
old, good old coins, which
yeah,
make a
there we go.
noise
Yeah,
when
right.
they crash down.
Now, if you notice on those coins, there's
Hmm.
nothing about I promise to pay the bearer the sum off.
Oh, let me look. Let's have a look at one of these
Well, the last
these
time I looked,
tiny little coins
right.
and just
Well,
see if you're right. Hold on one
all,
second. Let's
all.
go back here.
Oh, you're going to play with your new toy. There you
Yeah.
go.
Oh, where
No,
is it?
I think, yeah, yeah. No, I don't
It's
think you'll
not in
find
focus,
anything on
but
there.
that doesn't matter. And there's
You've
no
got to be
light
good
on
at
it.
Latin. I think you've got to understand a bit of Latin to know what's going on. But yeah, you're
But
all
yes, there is actually no. What did you say? No words on there that say
right.
"I promise to pay the bearer." It's just got the Queen's head on this particular occasion. This is 2017 when she was living and breathing, and it's got a little bit of Latin somewhere, and it just says £1 and a picture of some lovely thistles.
Absolutely.
Isn't that
Right.
nice?
Now let's remind
Hang
ourselves.
on a minute. I just want to see if that will pull apart. No, it won't.
Well, let's remind ourselves who actually creates these coins. The coinage in our pocket
Yes.
is the Royal Mint, and who is
Right.
the Royal Mint answerable to? Not the Bank of England.
Uh,
Answerable to His Majesty's Treasury. And the format or the fiscal arrangement that the HM Treasury uses to create the money, the loose coins in your pocket, is the same fiscal arrangement that saved the British nation in 1914. And I'm holding up once again my famous Bradbury pound,
Oh, look at that.
Treasury note. Now, that in 1914, for those who don't know, this was an emergency measure put through because the bankers, for one of the very few times in their lives, totally wrong footed themselves. And the reason was because we were on the gold standard then. So any paper money created by the Bank of England had to be backed up by the appropriate amount of gold in its vaults. And because they were practicing, shall we say, sleight of hand, creating many, many more notes in value than they actually had in gold. And when the First World War broke out on August the 4th, 1914, people have started to think, hang on a moment, global war, uncertainty, the value of paper can go up and down. I'm not going to put my faith in the piece of paper given to me by the Bank of England. Oh, no, no, no. I want to get my gold. I want a half gold sovereign or a gold sovereign. I want to go there and get my gold out.
Hmm.
I'd rather have that under my bed or buried in my back garden. And so there were queues all over the place, outside the high street banks and outside the Bank of England itself. And to quite funny, there was going to be a run on the banks and total chaos. And the governor of the Bank of England and many of the big wigs in the City of London went running round to David Lloyd George, who was the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and said, please, old boy, you've got to sort this one out. We know what to do. And sure enough, David Lloyd George passed a bill through Parliament in 2 days authorising the Treasury to create debt free, interest free money that was based on the wealth and the credit of a nation, exactly as they do with the coins. It's called M naught. In the case of coins today, it's about M naught at 2 point something percent. There's less coins in the system now as we head towards a cashless society, or at least we're going to stop that, obviously. But at the moment it's around about that. But in the 1914, it was M naught at 100%. That is all the money needed by the country. We will create it through the treasury, debt free, interest free, as it was based firmly on the wealth and the labour potential, the creativity of the country. And it all went swimmingly well. The nation was saved when, at the end of 5 days, the banks were opened and people could get their £1 notes, and £1 then is equivalent to £1 then is equivalent to about 170 odd pounds today. I don't know what the current thing is with inflation, it's going up. But
Hmm.
it put it this way, it's quite a lot of money, and they had £1 notes and they had 10 bob notes, 50 pence. And everyone accepted those notes once they were explained these are issued by the Treasury, therefore representing the government and the nation. and therefore everyone was happy because they knew that the nation wasn't going to go under, whereas a bank like the Bank of England could very well go under. And the Bank of
Mm.
England in those days was openly a private bank, whereas today supposedly nationalised but still privately controlled by the Bank for International Settlements and the big banking dynasties. So that's the state of play as regards the Bradbury pound and what happened in 1914. But the important point is the coins in our pocket today are still using the same fiscal arrangement as the Bradbury pound.
Which is interesting because the push is very much to get change out of circulation, and that using money or rather coins, no longer can you park your car anywhere, it seems, certainly around here, without having to download something to your mobile phone and then agreeing to terms and conditions and getting you onto some sort of digital payment, and we know where that's going in the future. Instead of being able to shove in genuine coins from the treasury, I've got here, somebody actually gave me this, which is one with the king's head on it, which I don't like holding very much because I don't like my fingers near his head. This is Charlie Boy on a silver sovereign or whatever it is. What is it? It's £2. It says here. It's probably worth about 30 quid in silver, but that was the denomination.
I had to laugh when I was looking for this morning. I decided to try and see if I could find a picture of the £100 million note,
Mm.
and I came across an eBay chap who was trying to flog a £20 note for 33 quid. I thought, what the hell is going on? I suppose somebody overseas might go and buy a £20, a current £20 note for £33. Well, good luck if he's managed to find a sucker who would do it. But
I'm
then
sending I'm sending each half of these now for a tenner each. If anyone wants to buy half a £10 note, you can have it for a tenner, and the other half you can have for 20. How about that as
I
a
mean,
bargain?
but to be honest with you, all we're doing is we're just practicing banking. I mean,
Mm.
and this is the sad bit. I think this is something that we really need to emphasize. What we're talking about here is basic fraud. It's basic criminality. But the bankers were brought in, William and Mary. They came in on the backs of William and Mary, and in 1694, the Bank of England was started. And obviously, there was an act that went through Parliament, and the parliamentarians approved it, even though this was the creation of money out of thin air and the charging of interest, usury, and yet they were happy for this to happen. And today, it is accepted, and my friend Andrew Bridgen has confirmed this, that, to put it bluntly, the City of London controls Parliament. You're not allowed to challenge you're not allowed to challenge how money is created and by whom. You're not allowed to talk about the fact that, you know, the government, parliament, government could authorize through the treasury the amount of money needed for whatever's required by the nation's economy. We're not allowed to talk about that. We're not allowed to talk about what happened in August 1914. And you really do have to ask why. And we also know that there's a chap in the House of Commons, a position, an ancient post. It was first started in 1571 at the time of Queen Elizabeth I, and that title, the title is called the City Remembrancer. And the current individual who sits in Parliament protecting the vital interests and traditions of the City of London is our friend here, Mr. Paul Double. And if you look below, if you go to your picture below, you'll see him dressed up. I thought this was a scam when I thought this was not true. I thought this is someone having a bit of fun at their expense. This is a genuine photograph showing Mr. Paul Double as the city remembrancer. He's got in one hand a horseshoe. He's got a sort of dagger or knife or whatever you want to call it in the other hand. He's sitting with his wig, with his little black sort of hat on, or whatever you want to call it, and sitting on this checkerboard, which you usually see with Freemasonry. It's weird. What is that
Mm.
about? It's just straight out of Alice in Wonderland. And yet, Paul double. He's been there about over 15 years. He's been there some time. But his job is to make sure that no politicians ever start asking how money is created and by whom, and how the entire financial system is in private, unelected, unaccountable hands. And they can meet in complete secrecy. And nobody is prepared in Parliament to challenge this. I have asked personally around 25 MPs in person, talking to them, what can you tell me about the Bank for International Settlements? And not one of them could tell me what that bank did. And yet that bank is responsible for over 95% of the world's money creation and money supply. It's given itself diplomatic immunity. It's incredible. Hardly anyone, not even 1% of this nation, knows anything about the Bank for International Settlements. And yet it's there holding the purse strings of the entire world. So I honestly, I am flabbergasted. It is our collective ignorance that is allowing these individuals to create economic mayhem for all of us. And with people, I heard on Good Morning Britain today, there was one family who were on a fixed interest rate for their mortgage, but that's coming to an end. And next month or two, they're going to have to find an extra £750 a month on top of their mortgage. Now, and who's decided this interest rate rise? Not democratically elected people, accountable people, and totally transparent. No, some individuals who we've never ever heard of, and the governor of a private institution that is pulling the strings on our politicians. When are people going to wake up to the simple truth that nearly everything that we're bothered about and what you have to talk about every day, Richard, stems from the fact that we've got criminals controlling the world's money supply? When will we wake up? When will the penny finally drop that you
Well,
can't have?
yes, I mean, as people
Yeah,
more and more are being squeezed, surely
yeah,
they're starting to think, hang on a minute, how is this possible? Where is it coming from?
yeah.
And I've got written down here something that you say quite a lot. If you cut off their creation of money and their control, and then they're helpless.
That's
If
right.
we
I mean,
create
it's the oxygen supply. It's their oxygen supply. They can only have the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the UN, all these institutions who are obviously building this nightmare future for all of us. They can only do this by controlling the money. If
Hmm.
they no longer control the money and we, the people, had sovereign, debt free, interest free money that we controlled, okay, and it could be part electronic, part physical, doesn't matter. And we have community banks, like the Bank for North Dakota in America, which is brilliant, where the people in the communities own the banks and the banks are doing the work for the communities. If we had that, then all these big international bodies would not exist. You've got the World Bank, you've got the OECD, you've got the IMF. All these institutions have private, unelected, unaccountable people running the show. And no economist can defend this because it's true. It's
Hmm.
fact. So when are we all going to rise up and simply tell, look, we're not having these private, unelected, unaccountable fraudsters running the world's money. We're going to run it ourselves as the people. And it can
Well,
be totally transparent and accountable.
maybe as we get closer to these awful digital money, the central bank digital currency, where we're going to be swapped over, that's the point that people will put their foot down and say no more.
Well, I'm going to I'm glad you mentioned that because I was talking to a friend of mine who does business in China.
Hmm.
And he was in a sort of supermarket, one of these little tiny supermarkets, and sweet, And the chap
Yes.
in front of him was a very obese Chinaman, very, very quite large. You don't often
Yes.
see that in China, but apparently this chap was fairly big.
Sugar
And
rice.
he was clutching various things he wanted to buy, and I think it was soft drinks and sweets and stuff. Anyway, the point was he stuck his card in, and it didn't work, and he was refused. Now, I don't know whether, I mean, my friend said, he probably didn't have enough money on his card. That's one possibility.
Hmm.
The other possibility is this, as we know in China, that you have a social credit system and score that's attached to the actual central bank digital currency. And basically, artificial intelligence, backed up by the Communist Party, will decide whether or not you are being a good citizen, that you are contributing to China, and that you are behaving yourself. But if you're obese, I mean, this is guesswork on our part now a little bit.
Hmm.
But if you are obese and unfit and unhealthy, then you're not contributing. So therefore, we, the state, are deciding you can't buy those. Now, that's guesswork on our part. We don't know in this particular case. But my friend said this, and he didn't know the answer. And perhaps then some of your viewers might like to think about this. What about private medical records? When we go and see our doctor, that's between us and the doctor, supposedly. But with the central bank digital currencies and the fact they want to bring in a social credit system, does that
And
mean
ID
that our
cards.
and ID cards and all the stuff to go with it, does that mean our private medical records also go into that mix? Now, I don't know the answer. I think this is something we really need to start
It
asking
seems
questions.
it seems likely to me that if you've got an ID, a digital ID for your convenience, of course, so
Oh,
that
yeah.
you can go to any department of the government and say, I have a problem with my council tax. I have a problem with this. I need some help with my an NHS treatment. It seems likely that all this information that has been gathered about you, that's currently in separate little folders, so that only those people who need to know can access it. It seems likely that anybody in government, but worse than that, as Sandy Adams said on this show, it's not just the government who are likely to get it, but it's these third parties that the
Yeah.
government franchise business out to who can see it. And it doesn't seem like a big leap between what's on your digital passport or your digital ID to how your money is going to be linked, especially as we know it's programmable.
Yeah, and everything is being corporatized. Because I was talking to a good friend of ours today, and he was telling me how in Cornwall, everything is now, what are supposed to be services, social services, all these, they're now corporations. They've been bought up and made into companies. So, we can see how it's all going, but people are still deaf and blind to what's happening. But I
I think
suddenly
what
thought,
people need is
yeah,
is 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 a route out of it, don't they? We need a
oh, yeah,
step by
yeah,
step plan that because knowing what's happening and feeling it is too big to do it. It's little me, and there's the government and the machinations, and the monster is just going around chomping and chomping and chomping.
mm.
But what we need is the little people here going, okay, I would do something if I knew the steps, what I need to
Well,
do.
the good news is we've got the Great Rising that's coming together. We've got a thing called the Great Resist coming together. People now are working together, which is lovely at the grassroots. I'm working with a lovely new bunch of people. It's all brilliant. And one of the things we really want to show people is a vision of the future without the globalists,
Mm.
without the criminals, the fraudsters, the banksters, whatever you want to call them. Get rid of them and see what sort of world we could really have. And a spiritual world too, because this is something that has coming into the Great Rising now, is a spiritual approach as well, which tends to be ignored at times, and it shouldn't be, because we should all be experiencing a much greater awareness spiritually of what's happening. That's not religion. Religion, as we all know, is a form of control. Organized religion, you've only got to look at the hierarchies and the structures put in place, and that's about control. But who we are spiritually, the infinite wisdom and God and everything else, brilliant. And this is what we want more of. And of course, the most important thing is when you look at the way we're going to be planning for the future, when you have people meeting, say, at United Nations level to talk about common law, natural law, whatever it may be, or national level or local level, it is all about how we can serve, how we can help others who are have a problem or two. Can we help you? It's all about. It's not about you know trying
Greed.
to be the
Yeah.
top dog. It is about how we can help one another. It's all about, instead of competition and confrontation, it's about cooperation, working with each other. You know, I don't see the problem. I mean, let's get rid of career politicians. Oh my God, yes. Let's get rid of all career politicians and those who think they can run the show. Because well, I'm trying to think, who was it? Scottish comedian. What's his name? Big Yid. What's he called? What's he called?
Oh, yes. I
Billy
know who you
Connolly.
mean.
Billy Connolly.
Billy, yes,
Yeah.
that's it.
And I think he once famously said anyone who seeks office should be banned from office for life. No one, like we should be having like a massive jury service, or let's at least have people all stepping up to the plate to apply their critical thinking and common sense, how they can help others. Service should be the key word. All of us are here to serve. Well, I'm here to serve people. You're here to serve people. We're all here to serve in some way to make other people's lives better. And
Well,
that's the watchword.
I totally agree. And if you can serve me up some sellotape using a brand name, sticky tape, I might at least be able to repair my £10 note
Well,
and go
that is
down the shop.
honestly, I'm not joking. I have a feeling the universe wanted that to happen because I have never seen that happen. I've tried to rip them when they first came out, and the
Yes.
ones, yeah. So I
Well,
think that's a
I'm not going to
first.
experiment again. I don't want it in pieces. But there we go. I think we should round this up.
Okay.
Fascinating. If you happen to have in your pocket or under the bed or under the floorboard £100 million note, we'd love to see a picture of it. Do send us a picture in. And if it's backed up by anything, if anybody can tell us what the hell that note could possibly be backed up by, other than a lot of hot wind coming out of the rear end of the Bank of England. And why is it that Scotland and Wales
Now,
can,
Northern Ireland.
Northern Ireland can do their own, print their own money, and we can't? I didn't
Well,
quite
the
understand.
whole, as I said, everything, it's always been in the shadows, all of this. Nobody, I mean,
We
when
need
we go
this
up to
out in the
Scotland,
open.
you find a lot of different variety of notes, and people say, oh, no, no, they're all covered, they're all, no problems. And of course, we just accept that. But nobody actually starts to ask the history of it, how has this come about?
Yes.
And if nothing else, as I said, I am only a critical thinker, and it's just because of who my uncle was and various other things that I found myself being involved in this. Otherwise, I
And we
wouldn't.
all need to do that, though, now, don't we? I mean, I think that what's happened in recent times is we've accepted so much that's come down the pipe, and we've just gone, yeah, okay. But I think we've been too lazy. We've taken the convenient way of things, and I think now we're all waking up to thinking, actually, we've all got to use our noggins a bit more and think, actually, is this of any benefit, not just to me, to my family, to my friends, to my community, to the rest of us, or is it only benefiting those people in authority and those people who are printing the money, and
Yeah,
etc.
that
etc.
is absolutely true. And one final point, I would just ask people to err on the side of caution from the Bitcoin lovers and the people who believe that everything should be, you know, just be careful because I was reliably informed by an insider that if they wanted to, they can take down the entire system. They have the means to do it. So I would be very, very careful about putting anything into these bitcoins and all this.
The
Just be careful.
cryptocurrencies.
Cryptocurrency. I couldn't think of the name. Cryptocurrencies. Just be careful. I'm not against them. I'm just saying to people, be careful, because trust me, the other side have technology available to them, probably 20 to 30 years ahead of what's in the marketplace.
Yes.
And if they wanted to, if they've got things to such a pitch that we have to have CBDC, we have to have a central bank digital currency because they've created the right conditions for it. Do you think they're going to allow the cryptos to continue? No, they're not. And I've been told reliable they'll be pulled. So
So there you go.
yeah, gold is good, precious metals is good, all that kind of stuff. Um,
Even my silver coin with a
yeah,
king's head
yeah.
on it.
Bottom line is, but the most important thing is we've got to somehow get the principle of the Bradbury, that is sovereign money, and have the decision making done at the lowest practicable level so that you do not have powerful people, private powerful people, being in a position to control money creation and money supply. That is the best way to do it.
Justin, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon
Well,
and
thank you.
telling me.
Thank you.
No, it's my pleasure. It's always good to have your wisdom on the show.
That's
And
only too kind. You're too kind, sir.
And I'll be back, of course, with more interviews and monologues and bits and bobs and other bits and pieces as and when. But in the meantime, from Justin and I, thank you for joining us. Hope you found it interesting. And we'll be back again in the future. Until then, goodbye.